Well, good morning. Welcome to Friday morning, May 15th. Welcome to the morning edition of Quarantining with Pastor Michelle. And so I am very excited to tell you that I get to have a haircut. Get a haircut, not, well, whatever the right verb is there. I'll be going to receive a haircut tomorrow. So that'll be nice to get rid of some of this natural curl thing that my hair does. And so that is bringing me some joy, knowing that I'm going to get my hair chopped off. So it is about time. It's been 2 months, and or more than 2 months, it's been like 3 months, and I usually get my hair cut once a month or every 3 weeks even. So I know many of you are probably excited. I apologize. I feel a sneeze coming on, but okay. And I know many of you are probably excited about getting your hair cut as well. I know I've been seeing a lot of posts about it. So, but just I want to caution us to continue to be careful when we do go out. I know that I plan on wearing a mask just to be on the safe side when I do go get my hair cut tomorrow. And I'm probably going to stop by Chipotle today to pick up some lunch, and I'll be actually going inside, and I'll wear a mask when I go inside because you just can never be too careful while we're going through a pandemic. And so, crazy times, but it's better to be safe than sorry. And so, anyway, with that said, let's hear some reflections from this book. When the muse is full upon you, you move to the chair at your desk as if entranced, and in that ghostly glow against the full dark before sunrise, story becomes a shape-shifter, a presence that cajoles you, tempts you, coaxes words to eke out onto the page, creating worlds and people from the fire deep within you so that this alchemy of creation becomes transcendent, making time lose all its properties. There's just you in the universe and this creative fire moving through your fingers in bold palettes of color, chasing the dark away until you emerge in the sure, calm light of morning and feel like a writer again. And I love these like conversations that are in the book. And so this is between, what a woman tells someone, always be a gentleman, my boy. You mean polite, gracious, humble? No, I mean always a gentle man. Act softly and kindly to others and to yourself. In everything? Yes, in everything. You don't need to be hard like others may say. Hard things break, soft things never do. Be like grass. It gets stepped on and flattened, but regains its shape again once the pressure passes. It is humble, accepting, and soft. That's what makes it strong. So I like that. Be like grass. All right, so let's open with a moment of silence and prayer. Deep breath. Our Father and Mother, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. All right, so let me take a drink of my V8 energy drink. This is my daily. I love it. All right, and so today I'm actually going back into the office and looking forward to working from home a little. And here is Lemmy. Lemmy wants to be a part. Say hi. I'm going to give her a hug. You know, she's annoying, but she's a scratcher too. Anyone have dogs at home that are just amazing scratchers? She's wearing a shirt, you can't see it, but it says, so she's a scratcher and a licker. And her shirt says, caution, I can't control my liquor. But she's up here because she wants this. It's a waffle. I'm going to eat it. All right. Anyway. So today, but I do hope everyone is doing okay. I know some of us are starting to slowly go back into the office and go back out. Oh, stop. Her nails are just awful. All right. So I know some of us are starting to go back out into the world, and I know I need to just finish this waffle so she goes away. Anyway, I hope everyone takes the necessary precautions as you do go back out. And so, without further ado, let's hear about our woman of the day. Our woman of the day is Indira Gandhi, the first ever woman to be elected to lead a country. And so she was born in 1917. She was the only child of the man who became the first Indian Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru. While she was growing up, her father was helping to lead fight for independence from the British, who had controlled India for nearly 200 years. Her mother, Kamala, gave speeches when her husband was in prison and was also arrested by the British because of how popular she was becoming with women's groups around India. With her father often away and her mother ill, Indira was a lonely child. She was inspired by Joan of Arc and Gandhi, the man who had started the independence movement in India. She tried to help by involving school children in the campaign to free India. Indira was extremely intelligent. After being taught at home, she went to many different schools in India, Switzerland, and England. Sadly, her mother died of tuberculosis when Indira was 19. Indira, who was living in England, was comforted by a friend named Ferozi Gandhi, who was not related to Mahatma Gandhi. They were married a few years later in India. And so India was going through some big changes, and finally in 1947 it did become independent from Britain. Indira's father was chosen as the country's first prime minister. As his wife had died, Indira helped her father out acting as his first lady, his assistant and hostess, and learning a lot about politics as she did so. After he died in 1964, the next prime minister appointed Indira as a Minister of Information and Broadcasting. So in her new job, she did something brave. She allowed people of all backgrounds and beliefs to speak on the television and radio, even those who didn't agree with the government. So for the first time in India, people were allowed to speak freely. 2 years later, that new prime minister died, and Indira became the prime minister until the next election. When she became the first woman in the world to be elected as a leader of a country, she became the first woman in the world to be elected by a leader of a country. She was elected 4 times in total, but not everyone was happy with her leadership. India was a divided country with many different groups fighting with one another, much like our country. She was forced to give up power and then even went to prison before she was reelected for the 4th time. That same year, the younger of her 2 sons was killed in a plane crash. She made some very tough decisions to try to bring unity and peace to India, some of which resulted in deaths. Because of this, some people believed that she was too ruthless, but others admired her strength and determination. In 1984, 2 of her own bodyguards shot and killed her, shocking the world. She had known there was danger all around her, and the night before she died, she said, "I don't mind if my life goes in the service of the nation. If I die today, every drop of my blood will invigorate the nation." So Indira made India a more modern and powerful country, leading it to a victory in a war against Pakistan and helping to create the new country of Bangladesh. She helped India launch its first satellite into space and worked hard to help the millions of poor people in her country. She even started a green revolution that aimed to create more jobs and enough food for all the people of India. Although some of her decisions and actions were very harsh, she led her country during difficult times, improving the lives of many poor people in India and showing the world that women could be strong leaders. And so a few of her quotes: "Actions today mold our tomorrows. You cannot shake hands with a clenched fist." That's a good one. "If you're feeling helpless, help someone. I would say our greatest achievement is to have survived as a free and democratic nation." See, even India has had a woman elected as a leader before we have. So, so here is some pictures. We'll go into that politics, but it is amazing, isn't it? I just want to say, you go, girl, right? I can't really get away with saying that. But it's amazing, though, to hear about these strong women. And so tomorrow we're going to hear about Teresa Cacciandamato. All right, that's her name. Okay, it's probably backwards, isn't it? She is the Malawi chief and children's rights activist. So we will hear about her tomorrow. And so, my friends, without further ado, let's get right into Charlotte's Web, right? All right. And so, all right. I love this book. Thank you, Mom, if you're watching, for that book. And so, that was just the book cracking. Okay. So, our next chapter. Next morning, when the first light came into the sky and the sparrows stirred in the trees, when the cows rattled their chains and the rooster crowed and the early automobiles went whispering along the road, Wilbur woke and looked for Charlotte. He saw her up overhead in a corner near the back of his pen. She was very quiet. Her 8 legs were spread wide. She seemed to have shrunk during the night. Next to her, attached to the ceiling, Wilbur saw a curious object. It was sort of a sack or a cocoon. It was peach-colored and looked as though it were made of cotton candy. "Are you awake, Charlotte?" "Yes." "What is that nifty little thing? Did you make it?" "I did indeed." "Is it a plaything?" "Plaything? I should say not. It is my egg sack, my magnum opus." "I don't know what a magnum opus is," said Wilbur. "That's Latin. It means great work. This egg sack is my great work, the finest thing I've ever made." "What's inside?" "Eggs? 514 of them." 514? You're kidding. "No, I'm not. I counted them. I got started counting, so I kept on just to keep my mind occupied." "It's a perfectly beautiful egg sack," said Wilbur, feeling as happy as though he had constructed it himself. "Yes, it is pretty," replied Charlotte, patting the sack with her 2 front legs. "Anyway, I can guarantee that it is strong. It is made of the toughest material I have. It's also waterproof. The eggs are inside and will be warm and dry." There's the egg sack. "Charlotte, are you really going to have 514 children?" "If nothing happens, yes. Of course they won't show up till next spring." Wilbur noticed that Charlotte's voice sounded sad. "What makes you sound so downhearted? I should think you'd be terribly happy about this." "Oh, don't pay any attention to me. I just don't have much pep anymore. I guess I feel sad because I won't ever see my children." "What do you mean you won't see your children? Of course you will. We'll all see them. It's going to be simply wonderful next spring in the barn cellar with..." "Huh? No. It's going to be simply wonderful next spring in the barn cellar with 514 baby spiders running around all over the place. And the geese will have a new set of goslings and the sheep will have their new lambs." "Maybe. However, I have a feeling I'm not going to see the results of last night's efforts. I don't feel good at all. I think I'm languishing, to tell you the truth." Wilbur didn't understand the word languish, and he hated to bother Charlotte by asking her to explain. But he was so worried he felt he had to ask. "What does languishing mean?" "It means I'm slowing up, feeling my age. I'm not young anymore, Wilbur." "But I don't want you to worry about me. This is your big day today. Look at my web. Doesn't it show up well with the dew on it?" Charlotte's web never looked more beautiful than it looked this morning. Each strand held dozens of bright drops of early morning dew. The light from the east struck it, and it made it all plain and clear. It was a perfect piece of designing and building, and in another hour or two, a steady stream of people would pass by, admiring it and reading it, and looking at Wilbur and marveling at the miracle. As Wilbur was studying the web, a pair of whiskers and sharp face appeared. Slowly, Templeton dragged himself across the pen and threw himself down in a corner. "I'm back. What a night!" The rat was swollen to twice his normal size. His stomach was as big around as a jelly jar. And there's Templeton. He looks like I do after I eat it in the melting pot. "What a night," he repeated hoarsely. "What feasting and carousing, a real gorge. I must have eaten the remains of 30 lunches. Never have I seen such leavings, and everything well ripened and seasoned with the passage of time and the heat of the day. Oh, it was rich, my friends, rich." "You ought to be ashamed of yourself," said Charlotte in disgust. "It would serve you right if you had an acute attack of indigestion." "Don't worry about my stomach," snarled Templeton. "It can handle anything. And by the way, I've got some bad news. As I came past that pig next door, the one that calls himself Uncle, I noticed a blue tag on the front of his pen. That means he has won first prize. I guess..." Excuse me. Woohoo! Sorry, she wanted to play. "I guess you're licked, Wilbur. You might as well relax. Nobody is going to hang any medal on you. Furthermore, I wouldn't be surprised if Zuckerman changes his mind about you. Wait till he gets a hankering for some fresh pork and smoked ham and crisp bacon. He'll take the knife to you, my boy. Be still, Templeton. You're too stuffed and blowed to know what you're saying. Don't pay any attention to him, Wilbur." Wilbur tried not to think about what the rat had just said. He decided to change the subject. Templeton, Wilbur said, if you weren't so dopey, you would have noticed that Charlotte has made an egg sac. She is going to become a mother. For your information, there are 514 eggs in that peachy little sack. Is this true? Asked the rat, eyeing the sack suspiciously. Yes, it's true. Congratulations. This has been a night. He closed his eyes, pulled some straw over himself, and dropped off into a deep sleep. Wilbur and Charlotte were glad to be rid of him for a while. At 9 o'clock, Mr. Arable's truck rolled into the fairgrounds and came to a stop at Wilbur's pen. Everybody climbed out. Look at Charlotte's Web. There's Scooby, her other toy. Look what it says. The grown-ups and the children joined hands and stood there, studying the new sign. Humble. Now, isn't that just the word for Wilbur? Everyone rejoiced to find that the miracle of the web had been repeated. Wilbur gazed up lovingly into their faces. He looked very humble and very grateful. Fern winked at Charlotte. Lurvy soon got busy. He poured a bucket of warm slops into the trough. And while Wilbur ate his breakfast, Lurvy scratched him gently with a smooth stick. Wait a minute, look at this. He pointed to the blue tag on Uncle's pen. This pig has won first prize already. The Zuckermans and the Arables stared at the tag. Mr. Zuckerman began to cry. Nobody said a word. They just stared at the tag. Then they stared at Uncle. Then they stared at the tag again. Lurvy took out an enormous handkerchief and blew his nose very loud. So loud, in fact, that the noise was heard by stable boys over at the horse barn. Can I have some money? I want to go out on the midway. You stay right where you are, said her mother. Tears came to Fern's eyes. What's everybody crying about? Asked Mr. Zuckerman. Let's get busy, Edith. Bring the buttermilk. Mrs. Zuckerman wiped her eyes with her handkerchief. She went to the truck and came back with a gallon of buttermilk. Bath time, said Zuckerman cheerfully. He and Mrs. Zuckerman and Avery climbed into Wilbur's pen. Avery slowly poured buttermilk on Wilbur's head and back as it trickled down his sides and cheeks. Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman rubbed it into his hair and skin. Passerby stopped to watch. Pretty soon a crowd had gathered. Wilbur grew beautifully white and smooth. The morning sun shone through his pink ears. He isn't as big as that pig next door, remarked one bystander. But he's cleaner. That's what I like. So do I, said another man. He's humble too, said a woman, reading the sign on the web. Everybody who visited the pig pen had a good word to say about Wilbur. Everyone admired the web, and of course nobody noticed Charlotte. Suddenly a voice was heard on the loudspeaker. Attention, please. Will Mr. Homer Zuckerman bring his famous pig to the judge's booth in front of the grandstand? A special award will be made there in 20 minutes. Everyone is invited to attend. Crate your pig, please, Mr. Zuckerman, and report to the judge's booth promptly. For a moment after this announcement, the Arables and Zuckermans were unable to speak or move. Then Avery picked up a handful of straw, threw it high in the air, and gave a loud yell. The straw fluttered down like confetti into Fern's hair. Mr. Zuckerman hugged Mrs. Zuckerman. Mr. Arable kissed Mrs. Arable. Avery kissed Wilbur. Lurvy shook hands with everybody. Fern hugged her mother. Avery hugged Fern. Mrs. Arable hugged Mrs. Zuckerman. A lot of stuff happening that we can't do right now, right? Up overhead in the shadows. I'm sorry. Her nails just went right into my knee. That was... Up overhead in the shadows of the ceiling, Charlotte crouched unseen, her front legs encircling her egg sac. Her heart was not beating as strongly as usual, and she felt weary and old, but she was sure at last that she had saved Wilbur's life, and she felt peaceful and contented. We have no time to lose, shouted Mr. Zuckerman. Lurvy, help with the crate. Can I have some money? Asked Fern. You wait. Can't you see everybody is busy? Miss Arable said. Put that empty buttermilk jar into the truck, commanded Mr. Arable. Avery grabbed the jar and rushed to the truck. Does my hair look all right? Asked Mrs. Zuckerman. Looks fine, snapped Mr. Zuckerman as he and Lurvy set the crate down in front of Wilbur. You didn't even look at my hair, said Mrs. Zuckerman. You're all right, Edith, said Mrs. Arable. Just keep calm. Templeton, asleep in the straw, heard the commotion and awoke. He didn't know exactly what was going on, but when he saw the men shoving Wilbur into the crate, he made up his mind to go along. He watched his chance, and when no one was looking, and there they are, and when no one was looking, he crept into the crate and buried himself in the straw at the bottom. All ready, boys? Let's go, cried Mr. Zuckerman. Let's go. He and Mr. Arable and Lurvy and Avery grabbed the crate and boosted over the side of the pen and up into the truck. Fern jumped aboard and sat on top of the crate. She still had straw in her hair and looked very pretty and excited. Mr. Arable started the motor. Everyone climbed in, and off they drove to the judge's booth in front of the grandstand. As they passed the Ferris wheel, Fern gazed up at it. and wished she were in the topmost car with Henry Fussy at her side. And so there you go. There's our portion of Charlotte's Web. And I apologize for Lemmy interrupting us a few times, but she just chose now to want to play. Anyway, I hope everyone has a wonderful Friday, and hang in there. Just remember, we're getting through this as best as we can, getting through it together. Much love to all of you.